Welcome back to a new episode of The Current. My name is Erin Curren, and I am delighted to be here with you with my guest, Kim Wilson. This show, as you may know, is to embrace life change, to spark curiosity, and to help you and me both shift perspectives. We're in the flow of a dynamic conversation here, and I want to welcome my guest, Kim Wilson. Kim, thanks so much for taking the time to be with me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I had the pleasure of meeting Kim on an online event with the NIA technique for, I think it was back in February for Black History Month. And I just knew I wanted to get to know Kim better. She is an inspirational speaker, podcaster, author, and is a psychotherapist who helps folks with their relationships, among many other things. Kim has enthusiasm, which I think you'll agree is contagious. And Kim, we're going to jump right in. Thank you for being here with us today and for bringing your unique perspective. I heard you say something before we started the show officially about your day today, and I'd love for you to share that again with our viewers. I asked you, how your day was, and you saw clients today, right?
Yes, I did. And it's not uncommon when I tell people that I am a psychotherapist, it's not uncommon for people to say, gosh, how do you do it all day, every day, listening to problems? And I said, that's not how I see it. For me, I'm listening out for solutions all day. I love focusing on solutions. The other thing about that, it keeps me grounded. It keeps me in this space of gratitude because there are people who are dealing with a lot of stuff from even 15 years ago. And to be in a mental space and in an emotional space where I'm not carrying that and I'm able to help somebody else move through that, I feel grateful for that. So I don't feel burdened by the process at all.
It's so interesting. You're touching immediately on something I wanted to ask you about, which is I could see for many people, and probably the people asking you that question, don't you feel drained by the end of the day or just full of other people's problems? Why you went into this field? Is it work that feeds you, that nourishes you? Would you say that it energizes you? And if not, I'm so curious what does give you those moments of nourishment throughout your day?
Yes, when I was a child, I was very compassionate and very loving. Anytime I saw somebody's feelings hurt, I wanted to help them to feel better. It was in my nature. So by the time I reached high school, some people would refer to me as the mama of the group because I was so nurturing. And by the time I realized that I wanted to be a counselor, I was passionate about love, people loving one another. It really made me feel a certain type of way if I saw somebody being bullied, if I saw somebody being mean. It never made sense to me. Name calling never made sense to me. I know in my household, I was fortunate enough to grow up with both of my parents. Name calling was not allowed. So I didn't even realize I was the fat kid until I got to the 6th grade and this little boy told me. I didn't know because name calling was not allowed. And by the time I became an adult and a counselor, I just realized and I was able to articulate, I am passionate about helping people to be happy, to sit in the space of love. I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to teach it. I wanted to listen to the hurt and the pain and find a way to help people get to that place of love if they have been sitting inside of hurt instead of it. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. It really feels like for you, this is something that's a part of your essence, that from early childhood, you felt this call to align and help others really find the love in their life, find that place where they can feel authentic joy and acceptance, self-acceptance, and true connection with others.
Yes. Oh, when I hear words like self-acceptance, connection, it just really gets me going there. And it's like, oh, let's um, and that is self-acceptance. Let me just hang out in that space for a second, because a lot of times if we're not embracing self-acceptance, what we're doing is developing this nasty habit called judgment. Oh boy, either judging others or judging ourselves. And that will start that nasty habit of negative thinking. And it can be on just a negative thought loop. And the other thing, connection. I love connection. That's how we grow and go. And when we are not connecting, we may be isolating, withdrawing ourselves from experiences and people. One of the ways that we met is we leaned in and connected to a community, and look what came out of that. Here we are connecting in a separate space. I think that's what I call amazing. Amazing is my favorite word. It's better than average. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I love acceptance and connection.
Absolutely. Just feeling that from you and love it as well. And as you know, I love reaching out, and that I have learned in my life that the worst that can happen is someone can not reach back or say they're too busy or say no. And really, I'm better off for having asked than never knowing if that connection could be made. So this brings me to the topic of community, really, the sense of connection, and how do you cultivate community and connection in your life? What do you think really nourishes community?
Yeah, I am very intentional about nourishing my community, and I design it. Really, I like to refer to us as happiness designers. We get to design. One of the things I love about being an adult is I don't have to ask. When you're 8 years old, may I get up and sharpen my pencil? No, no, no. I can join any community that has the same interest as I do. And maybe for the past 10 years, I've been a part of 3 professional organizations, and those individuals share some of my interests. And that's how I do it. I am intentional about connecting to those communities because I know they have value. Relationships, they teach us, they pour into us. Those are the healthy relationships, of course. And so I'm intentional about connecting to it, whether it's a workshop, it's a retreat, it's a ice cream social. I'm intentional. I lean in and say yes.
I love that. And I'm curious if you notice a trend among maybe clients of yours or friends or family members who don't have that intentionality, whether they maybe have an expectation that it manifests on its own. Like they're waiting for someone to call them and invite them to something. Is that something you notice?
Yes, I feel like I talk about that every day, at least with 2 clients. Especially if the isolation has started, and I say, or if they feel stuck, and I say, be intentional about connecting to a different community. It can be anything. If you feel stuck in your career space, let's look on the personal side. What brings you joy? Oh, you used to play the flute a long time ago? Where's my community of flute players? Sometimes it's just being in that environment and listening. But yes, a lot of times I I I really do have this conversation just about every day because the isolation has happened. They have disconnected from what really nourishes them. And the way we create happier days is we engage in things that make us happy.
Yeah.
And usually the trend that I see for people who have disconnected from happiness and they may be sitting inside of depression, they're not connected to a community. That disconnection has happened. And even specifically, if I think about new moms who may be dealing with postpartum depression, one of the common trends that I see, there's a lot of isolation because they may be with their baby all day and they're no longer connected to a community or sharing their new experience as a mom. So to be connected to a community of new moms, I encourage that. Go get connected to new moms because you're not alone. You'll be surprised that somebody is feeling the same way that you feel. You don't have to be ashamed of feeling guilty or anything else that you feel. Go to that community so you can hear the language.
Absolutely. And that's reminding me of something that is, I think we can fall into the trap of feeling like, oh, the example of, entering a new stage of life, things are changing. The people I'm hanging out with are changing. And maybe the communities I used to, that used to be accessible to me for whatever reason aren't any longer. Maybe I can't go out and hang out at bars at this point in my life or something. Anything could have shifted. And that evolution is part of that flow, that our communities naturally evolve and change. And so to not think that somehow we're failing at life, because we need to seek out new communities, and new ways of connecting to people.
Yes, yes. We're constantly becoming. I did a talk a few months ago, and I did not expect to receive the feedback that I did. And what I mean by that, just people sending me messages, coming up to me, and I was casually talking about friendship. And for women over 40, I didn't realize it was such a huge topic. In our 20s, when we make friends, we're constantly telling each other everything. We are. I feel we are more open, and by the time we hit our 30s, and if we become moms, we're in our career trying to climb or something like that. We're thinking about our accomplishments. We stop talking about things if they don't go the way we felt like they should have gone. We're not talking about the divorce a lot of times. We don't talk about the bankruptcy. We don't talk about those things that we're not proud of. So we just kind of start shoving them, pushing them down. And while we are evolving as a human being and an adult, our interests may not be the same. And if we are not openly talking about that, or even feeling okay about saying, hey, I found a new group over here. I'm just telling you about it, what brings me joy. I'm not asking you to join it with me. I just want you to realize that I am going in a different direction so you can understand why my language is changing, why my interest is changing. I know we used to do such and such. And I think that helps with building friendships. But oftentimes, what I have observed, that's not happening as we are evolving and becoming. And some of those friendships and relationships can start to break down as we get older.
Yeah, yeah. This brings us and continues along this topic of life change, which is so fundamental to being in the flow of life, right? Life is change. Change is constant. We're always in this process of evolving and becoming. I love that word you used. I wonder if there's an example in your life, Kim, that you would be willing to share with viewers and listeners of a moment when you experienced life change, and what that, if there was an example from your life you'd be willing to share with us and how you got through that.
Let's see. Let me start it this way. So I always say that confidence has been my saving grace. I don't know what it feels like to be a skinny girl. I was a chubby kid, a chubby teenager, and I grew into this voluptuous woman. So I don't know. I don't even know, like, is there a size 3? I don't know what's going on there down in those sizes. And and when a lot of women became my friend when I was a teenager, even in my 20s, one of the things that I would often hear was they loved my confidence. They loved the fact that I was open or outspoken, not outspoken in a mean way. When I became a wife at the age of 30 and I became a professional, I believe what felt like what used to be confidence started to feel like judgment to some people. It may have felt like intimidation. I'm not quite sure. They would have to really articulate that to me. But as I started to self-reflect on relationships or friendships that started to end, and I would even ask. So I believe in asking and having a conversation about it. And what I had to realize as I evolved and became a more mature person, because one thing people always told me as a little girl, you're so mature, you're so mature. And so you become what people are telling you. And I think that's how I became the mama of the group as well, because that's what people were constantly telling me. I had 4 siblings. I was the baby, but people were still telling me that I was mature and I behave older. When I think after losing certain friends, that was traumatic for me, to be honest, Erin. And I think probably in the past 2 years, I was able to articulate that and really accept. I was like, you know what? I need to have a counseling session around this, you know, because it's not settling well with me. And I really wanted to be able to articulate how this was happening. And I wanted to get a perspective on that. And one of the things that just doing some work around that I was able to articulate, one, if I have healed in a certain area, that doesn't mean that somebody else has healed in that area, and being able to meet people where they are. Secondly, I was able to see that for one particular relationship, I thought I was being authentic, but I was showing up being inauthentic in many different times. I was saying yes when I should have been saying no. I was not speaking from that true place. I was operating from a place of fear, because there were certain experiences where I thought, okay, I don't want to say no because that would make her upset. She'll be disappointed in me. But my true answer was no. And I should have stood inside of my no. It may have stung a little bit. We would have been able to get through that. And I think just when I think about certain relationships, just not even understanding that. And that's kind of how I got to that space where, like, oh, I just got stung by this. This was hurtful to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just so appreciate your vulnerability and sharing that, without going into specifics. It's like, as a relationship expert
Yeah.
on some level, you're walking your talk, you're doing the work, you're investigating and examining relationships that don't or did not in the past sit well with you. Like, what was that? Can I look at that? Like, what was on me there, and what's maybe the other person's? And I just love that you continue to examine and inquire and get your own help for those times and those struggles, since we all need outside help at times, right? It's
Yes.
not like
Yes.
our thinking is going to necessarily become clear with our thinker.
Yes. 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 Absolutely. And
So
that self mhm.
go ahead.
And that self-awareness, that's one of my favorite tools, because we can't
Yeah.
change anything we don't acknowledge and we don't understand.
Yeah. You used a phrase when you were speaking just now, and it reminds me of how one of the ways, I'm sure of many, that you are of service to your community and the community at large, which is through your ability to share and counsel and make suggestions and help people in their relationships. And you said, I needed a session. And I know that is the title. I Need a Session is the title of your book. And I'd love to spend a little time talking about this book, what it is, where people can find it, why they might pick it up and read it.
Yes. So I came up with the title, I Need a Session. Oftentimes, whether I'm in the airport or at a grocery store, and people ask me what I do professionally, and I say, I'm a counselor, they will say, girl, I need a session. At that moment, I don't believe they're telling me that something is wrong with them, but I do hear there's something I want to share. There's something I want to express and release. So I created this tool. to help people get to this place of love, confidence, and positivity. I'm always thinking in terms of tools, strategies, and resources. Tools, strategies, and resources. First, we got to figure out what the core issues are. What are we dealing with here? Is it insecurity? Is it depression? Is it trauma? Is it anxiety? And then, so once we figure that out, all right, we can start focusing on the tools, the strategy, and the resource. Love is a tool. One of the ways I like to think about it is when you think about how people used to cut the grass back in the day, Erin, they were out there using an old sling blade to get that grass down. And then, the invention of the lawnmower came and the tractor, and the farmers were able to be more effective and efficient. Those are physical tools. But when we lose our way, when we become disconnected, sad, angry, what are our tools? The mental tools, love, confidence, and positivity. And that's how we manage and navigate healthy relationships. The most important relationship is the relationship that we have with ourselves, then others. And I Need a Session, the book, is a tool to help do that. I consider books as tools because it can help give us the language to articulate what we feel, what we're missing, what we're thinking.
Yeah, beautiful. And so in this book, people will be able to see and first of all, identify, like, what is it that I'm really dealing with here in their particular case, and then use some of the tools you lay out there, and with some strategies, I imagine, for applying that and helping them work through if they aren't in a place where they have a therapist or a counselor like you who could help them in a session. Is that right?
Yes. And so some of those tools may be forgiveness. How do we use forgiveness as a tool? Sometimes I do believe that's a difficult one for people to get to, because sometimes we think about forgiveness as this thing that it's like, okay, I look in the mirror and say, I forgive 3 times. No, it is a process. And we get
Yeah.
to forgive in bite-sized pieces. So just giving people a framework on what mental tools look like and how we can use it.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I'm going to include your website and how people can be in touch with you and find your book and buy your book that way. Kim, as our time wraps up, I just realized we've touched on so many themes of the show, The Current. We've touched on what energizes you and nourishes you, community, service, and life change. And I wonder if there's any parting words you have for listeners, anything that you'd want them to take away from our conversation today.
Yes, love heals. One of my favorite quotes by Dr. Martin Luther King is, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Sit inside of love. It's our healing space. One of the things that I do too on my website is offer a podcast and other resources to help people connect to this space of love at www.kimwilsonspeaks.com.
Oh, Kim, what a profound and important message to end with today. I want to thank you so deeply for joining me in this episode of The Current. Thank you again for being here with us.
Yes, thank you. I absolutely enjoyed being inside of this flow.
Awesome. We'll see you next time, viewers, on The Current. Be well.